So can everyone see the shared screen?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay,
Yeah.
fantastic. So, so as we kind of hit phase 2 of this presentation, we'll give it like, I'll just kind of fly through some of the things that I spoke about last week. I won't bore you with the introduction again because, you know, that gets a little bit tedious. So we were talking about recruitment tips to help separate you from the crowd. My first point was the importance of our social media, making sure our profile pictures were warm, professional, up to date. We had a bit of a joke about some profile pictures not to use and some email addresses not to use. We spoke about the importance of using the recruitment platforms to their fullest potential as well. And we spoke about the search functions behind the scenes for candidates where you can upload your CV onto different databases. We also spoke about LinkedIn, importance of getting your profile bang on and making yourself as visible as possible, and the hidden features behind the scenes that only certain people can see in your profiles when it comes to looking for a new role and different recruiters and what have you. Spoke about recruitment agencies and some tips to kind of make sure you get the right agency and make sure that you get the best out of the recruitment agencies that you're using. And then we spoke about the importance of contacting companies directly, especially in this kind of current climate, as it were. So whilst we've kind of gone through all of those things, now we're going to talk about some kind of CV tips and what have you. So one of the things that we see a hell of a lot in our day job as recruitment consultants is people's CVs lacking some kind of key, some key important points on their CV. And what I want to talk about today specifically is the importance of tailoring your CV to each particular job that you go for. Now, it sounds really straightforward and it sounds really basic, but you'll be kind of completely flabbergasted about how many CVs we see and recruitment agencies see and direct hiring managers for CVs with kind of statements that land on our desk that say, I am a bright, enthusiastic PA looking for a job in a law firm, but they've applied to a bank, or we see, I am a really confident organizer with great attention to detail, looking for a role that, I can use all my organizational skills, but they've applied for a role that doesn't really kind of account for. Now, whenever you go for a job, what you need to be doing is you need to be spending 15-20 minutes really going through that job specification in as much detail as you possibly can. And if you're going through a recruiter, it's the recruiter's job to give you as much information as possible about that particular role, and make sure that you have that information and then get that on the CV, because the more information, the better on CVs. Now, people talk about, oh, my CV should only be 2 pages. Oh, it's too long. It's this, that, and the other. But from what I've seen, and it's kind of increased over the years and years, hiring managers like to see specific examples on CV, and they like to see people's experience. So make sure you go into as much detail as you possibly can. And one of the things that I remember off the back of the last recession, kind of 2008, at the back of that recession, when jobs were at a premium, that was when the kind of shift came from the whole traditional CV has to be 2 pages long. That's when the shift kind of really started to go into a lot more detail behind CVs. So make sure you tailor the job to each. Make sure you tailor your CV to each job that you go to. Get as much detail on there as possible, and not leave anything to chance, essentially. Now, we spoke before. One of the questions that came up a lot in the first part of this session, tail end of last week, was people talking about jumpy CVs and people's backgrounds and what have you. Research has told me, and as I said, when we were answering those direct questions at the time, research has told me that definitely get your experience on that CV, and hiring managers, despite what people think, companies don't actually mind bits and pieces of information on CVs that could be deemed as jumpy, should we say. So they actually like those bits and pieces on the CV, as long as you're upfront, as long as you own that experience, and as long as you actually are upfront with it and be proud of it, and and show exactly what you're doing, essentially. Now, all of the other bits and pieces about CV tips and what have you, I'm not necessarily going to talk about the kind of the real generic things, because it goes without saying, talking about making your CV consistent and same font and what have you, because I'm going to assume that everybody knows that. What I wanted to kind of focus here is about making sure that the CV is relevant for each particular job. Now, I did a talk at the NEC at the beginning of this year, and it was to the kind of younger generation of people coming into the workplace. And what I said to them, and I will say it to kind of everybody, is your CV is such an important document. And for me, given my career, I kind of liken it almost like to a passport, and it's something that you should always have access to, and you should always be updating it, even if you're not looking for a new role. And now, even if you've come into this talk today and you've kind of sat there and just kind of dipped in to see what I have to say, I would say now is the most perfect time to be updating it and getting it up to speed as much as possible. So even if you're not looking for a new job, when you're throughout your career, make sure you just add little bits to it all of the time and have it as a working document throughout your career, basically. So my next tip is something that I've spoken about a lot over the last couple of years, and it's something that we introduced for a number of our candidates a few years ago. And I think that this is one of the kind of like the key points that really separate everybody from the crowd, essentially. So I can't see the chat box because I've got my shared screen, but I'm going to ask a question, and I think that most people will nod to these bunch of questions. So who listening today hasn't got a smartphone? If there's anyone that hasn't got a smartphone, I'll be surprised. Also, who is listening to this that hasn't actually taken a selfie before? There could be a couple of people that haven't. And the next question that I would ask is, who hasn't spoken over FaceTime or Skype or Zoom? Now, most of you're all watching this on Zoom, so that's a pretty straightforward question. Now, it's my recommendation that we start to put this basic simple technology to good use. Now, I've been championing this for the last 4 or 5 years, even more so with what is happening at this moment in this day where we are at this moment in time. This is something that I've been talking about for years, and I've been talking about the importance of getting ourselves used to this technology and using it, but it's going to come into play so much more as of now. And all the things that I was talking about before is kind of, it's now in play because of what's happening in the current market. Now, even before what we're going through at this moment in time, lots and lots of different organizations and companies have been using video technology as part of their interview process. And a lot of companies were logging on to be honest, quite glitchy, not very user-friendly video-based platforms as part of their filter process. So what I'm going to suggest is that as a job seeker, you want to be thinking a little bit more outside the box and try and stay one step ahead of them, essentially. Now, I get that it's not in everybody's comfort zone, and this tip isn't going to be, you know, everybody's going to be the most comfortable with it, but I can promise you it's definitely going to start separating you from the crowd at this particular moment in time. So essentially, by recording a very short, simple video and introduction on your CV, what that actually does is it brings your profile out into life, and the hiring manager will see exactly what you're all about. Now, it works in every single scenario. If your CV is jumpy, it gives you the opportunity to kind of describe, it gives you the opportunity to say and describe why you've had different temp jobs. If your experience doesn't exactly match the job spec or the brief, it gives you the chance to explain what skills are transferable for that particular job. Now, a lot of the roles that we see, and a lot of the things that we look at, and I know that a number of the people that logged on last Friday were in the PA and support staff spectrum. I would say it's particularly important for you guys to start thinking about video introductions on the CVs, because, as you know, one of the most important things is relationship building skills as a PA, and earning that trust from the direct bosses and what have you, so you can work as a trusted partner. Now, having a couple of bits of paper and having bullet points about what you're all about, it doesn't really give you the opportunity to get that experience pinged out into life. So this will be particularly important for you guys. So as I say, when we think about shooting a video, it doesn't have to be anything. It doesn't have to be an Oscar-winning performance or anything like that. It's just very, very straightforward. Keep it short and sweet and relevant. It could be a minute and a half. Something as basic as, "Hi, my name is Paul Kelly. This is the role that I've been doing for the past however many years. I've seen this job that is doing X, Y, Z. I'm really excited in it because my experience matches what the job spec says." Boom, 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 outlining a few kind of key points of what your experience are. "I really hope that you think you're relevant for this job. Really hope that you think I'm relevant for this job. And I really look forward to hearing from you soon." Simple as that. And as I say, I've been championing this for a number of years, and I think that this is one of the key developments that's really going to take place in the recruitment sector here and now, basically. So that's something to start thinking about and looking at. If anyone wants to talk to me a little bit more about that, then I'm happy to have that conversation. So we think about our recruitment process. We've gone through the whole cycle. We've got an amazing CV. It's tailored for the job. We've got our social media on point. We've got everything perfect. We've done a great video. We've put that on our CV. We've sent our application off. We're really, really happy with the package that we presented to the hiring managers. So now is the time we kind of sit back and we wait, and we sit there and wait to see what happens. No, there's one last thing that we need to do before we start getting to that crucial interview stage. Now we're on LinkedIn. Now we've got our profiles really together. What I recommend everybody does is to give that hiring manager the most gentlest, politest, simplest of nudges, so they remember you and they know what your application is all about. So a simple connection request on LinkedIn, because every hiring manager is going to be on LinkedIn. And if you're feeling brave, a simple note whilst doing so, basically saying, "Hey, I've just applied for this job. I really love the sound of it. I hope to speak to you soon. My details should be with you." At this point, the hiring manager will then have your CV, a video intro of yourself, access to your professional social media pages, all at their fingertips. Now, the next person that they see could be mine, for example, Paul Kelly's, and all that they have got is a 2-3 page document, which is faceless and generic. with a terrible email address and pictures of me back in the day out with the lads. And what we need to be remembering throughout our whole recruitment process is that it's vital to separate yourself from the crowd at all times, basically. So this last kind of key point will definitely do that, especially if it's done in the right way. Okay, so I know that a lot of people kind of have, want lots and lots of information around interviews and how to really kind of nail the interview process. And I think that I'm probably going to get quite a few questions about this coming up at the end, which is great. And I'm happy to kind of answer all of those and talk to anyone a little bit more detail about interviews and what have you. But the last piece of the recruitment process is it's very much the interview side of things. I like to simplify this, like you've probably seen through all of these tips, and it really, really is. It's all in the preparation. Okay. Now, I can't stress enough how important the preparation part of the interview process is. Essentially, what you need to be thinking about is that the better prepared you are, the more relaxed you feel. The more relaxed you feel, the easier it becomes to just have a chat, basically. So what I like to say to people, and what I've always said throughout my recruitment career, is if you were sitting at home with your partner, or you were out with your friends or family and what have you, and they would be able, and one of those people sat there and said to you, "Hey, what do you do every day for your job?" You would really be able to just tell them. You'd be able to tell them in great detail. You'd be able to tell them funny anecdotes of what's going on, and give them good experience of give them good examples of your experience and what have you. So what you need to be doing is taking yourself out of the fact that it's an interview and basically preparing yourself to make sure you're ready to chat, because that is what interviews are. They are just a chat, essentially. So the first question that comes up in 95%, 99.9% of interviews will be, "What do you know about us?" Okay. The interviewer asks that question because they like to set the tone for the interview. They're not necessarily asking that question because they want to see you've been revising for a week on this particular organization or this company. What they're doing is that they're basically seeing how interested you are in this particular role and how much research you've done. Okay, so this part is very, very simplistic. What I encourage people to do is to pick out 3 key facts from somebody's company website. And if we think about some of the most famous organizations in the world, what we want to try and be doing is basically having the 3 facts so we can relay that to the hiring manager, and then making them as different and as less generic as what the next person is going to say. Because the chances are people are going to go in there and say, "Well, I know Coca-Cola distributes in this amount of organizations or this amount of companies, and you've got offices here, there, and blah, 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 blah." If you were to sit there and say, "Well, I've had a really good look at your website, and I noticed the stuff that you've been doing with your CSR policies. I noticed that you've got all of these things going on in this particular department with this deal, with this background and what have you. I saw testimonials from Wikipedia and blah, 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 blah," which will only take you 15, 20 minutes, but it's about taking something that is just bringing it to life and not generic that everybody talks about. So think about some really solid, different, outside of the box, new examples of what people put on their website, essentially. Make sure that we go through, when we're thinking about research, we need to be going through the job spec and making sure that we have got the key points that we can refer to. And what I like people to do is simply highlight all of the key skills that you've got the experience in and have them there ready to go. Now, as we know, a lot of interviews are based around competency-based interviews. And you know, if you were to do a Google search for examples how to handle a competency-based interview, you would probably come up with thousands of different websites, and people will ask you to buy their book and what have you. But again, it's so simplistic. You can see the slide in front of you with the STAR technique, but to simplify it even further, when we think about competency-based questions, simply answering it in 3 stages. Number 1, set the scene by describing the actual situation. Number 2, talk through what your actions were and explain your outcome. It's as simple as that. And if you think about it when you're talking to people, and just think about that 3-stage process in your mind, which is essentially this in front of you, but you know, to simplify it even further, have those 3 key stages. And what that will do is that will put you in a position where you answer the questions in great detail without waffle, with some good execution behind it. Okay. Something to remember on that last point is the second most common reason someone is a no on an interview is because they don't give enough detail behind their answers. So this gives you the kind of trigger points and the reasons to make sure that you give as much detail as you possibly can. It also sounds really, really silly, but research your CV and make sure you know it inside out, because a good hiring manager will really kind of drill down on your experience of the CV, and the interviewers will use it as a reference point. And again, you'll be really surprised with how many people neglect this point. And I think that it's going to be, you know, vital when we're moving into the recruitment market in the coming months and what have you. The last point that I will say is to encourage people to take a pack with you with printouts, and include your CV, include some printouts from the website and what have you from what you found, include the job spec, and if you possibly can, pull out some printouts of the people that are going to be interviewing you. Now, again, research with hundreds of hiring managers, people that come in to see us in our recruitment agency. If a candidate sits there and has their pack open at the beginning of the interview and it's got all of that there, it sets the tone perfectly. It shows that you're organized, proactive, and gives the most amazing visual impact at the start of the interview. And above everything else, and I keep saying it, it really separates them from the crowd, basically. So if we think about our summary of what we've discussed, the points are: social media, get them on point, use recruitment platforms to their fullest potential, pick the right recruitment agency, contact companies directly, tailor your CV to the job specification, put a video introduction on your CV, connect on LinkedIn, and interviews. It's all in the prep. So if anybody has got any questions, let's go back into the chat screen. Oh, wow, there's loads of people. It's great. Brilliant. So yeah, if anybody's got any questions they want to fire at me, feel free to kind of come off mute or put them in the chat box. Very, very happy to to just give you my advice and opinions and tell you straight, basically. So if anyone's got anything they want to say, please feel free.
Paul, hi.
Hello.
Hello there. Can I just ask, when you're doing a video, so
Yeah.
you wanted a video for each position that you're going for?
Well, I think that you can. Okay. I know your background, Julie. Okay, so I think in the case of what the type of job that you would be looking for,
Yeah.
I think that you could do one video which keeps it a little bit more generic for your specific job search.
Yeah.
Because I know your background and I know what you're looking for your particular job. You could have that one that says, "Hi, this is what I'm doing. I've been. This is my experience, X, Y, Z. This is the type of role that I'm now looking for." So then, if you then if you then change that job search to something else, you can just change a couple of bits and pieces in it. So for example, if you wanted to go into an in-house environment, or you wanted to move to an accountancy, or this, that, and the other, this is now what I'm trying to achieve, and then push it from there. But if you can keep it, if you can keep it as specific as possible, then then that's great. But I think because of the types of roles that you go for, you wouldn't necessarily need to kind of change it up too many times.
No. And what would you just put a video link or something on YouTube or something?
Yeah, so there's various different ways to do it. You could post it up on YouTube and have it as an unlisted video, which means that it's like I wouldn't be able to watch it, basically.
No.
It will be private. Or you could put it in a MP4 format, or you could use a Dropbox account, a free Dropbox account. That would be easy. Or there's so many different Google. You could put it on a Google Drive as well. So yeah. That's.
Should we perhaps not wait until the hairdressers are open?
Yeah, you could do. I mean, but I've been very lucky because my wife cut my hair for me yesterday. She did an amazing job. So yeah, I've been quite lucky in that regard.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
No worries at all. So I'm just looking through some of the bits and pieces. Yeah, we're just working through all the recordings at the moment of what we're doing, and we're in the process of posting them up, and we'll release the links to those bits and pieces, hopefully in the next kind of 24 hours or so. So somebody's put a question here. I previously thought that interviews don't like candidates bring notes back into an interview, so it gives me a bit more insight. Okay, that's interesting. How this came about, we used to run an award ceremony quite a few years ago, and in the second year, 4 of the people that turned up for the interviews with the judges, who were also hiring managers for different organisations, they all came with all these different packs of all the bits and pieces that they prepared. And when I sat in the room with them afterwards, they said the thing that separated them was how prepared they were, and they all came in with these different packs and what have you. I was like, oh, okay, great. So then we had this whole long conversation about how they love it when people turn up in interview rooms and what have you, and have these packs all together. So it's something that I kind of was, it was, this was a good few years ago. I kind of had long conversations with them, and then off the back of that, I started asking as many hiring managers as I could, and they all turned around and said, "Yeah, we love it." So that's what we always recommend for our candidates to do, because clients do seem to like it. So someone says that I've always brought notes into an interview. Always gone with the pack as 20 years. It's always a winner. Good advice. I have a final video concerned. Okay, here we go. What's this? Little concern that the person the interview's postponed. Since last minute, should I be concerned about him being flaky, or is he accepting that he desperately needs an EA? Okay. Wow. That question is so kind of specific to this particular job search. It's really impossible for me to answer that one without having a little bit more background into why these people keep cancelling and what have you. So I can't give you an opinion based on that, unfortunately. But if you want to talk a little bit more on it, I'm definitely I'm definitely open to do that. We're uploading videos. Okay, that's good. They brought notes to an interview because you expect to know your CV. Those who carried notes, were you hired? It seems that from what other people have said before, it seems that the notes have been successful. So that's great. So there's someone here living overseas, likely to be moving back in the next 6 months. What are your thoughts on securing something from overseas? Should I be already based in the UK? Great question. If you'd have said that to me 6 months ago, so look, I've done lots of work the other way, so overseas from outside of the UK into, you know, into the different areas and what have you. So 6 months ago, what I would have said is that people would be slightly more hesitant to invite you in for interview, consider your application, because there were going to be candidates on the ground ready to go. Now, because of the phase that we're now moving into, i.e. what's going to happen with phased return to works, who's going to be in the office, are people going to want to have interviews conducted face to face, all of these variables which we don't know about, and we'll kind of find out over the next month or so. I would say the kind of world is now open, and everybody is more interested and open to doing conversations like we're doing now. You know, I mean, we can still get exactly the same amount of information from people on the computer screen, you know, so I think that people will be open to hearing your experience. And I think that one of the biggest shifts that we're going to see is that more interviews are going to happen like this on these kind of platforms now, so that you would like to think that it would pave the way that little bit more for you to get to open up opportunities. What I will say is I would make sure that you have got all of the steps in place to kind of sit there and say, this is when I'm coming back on this. If you can, I'm coming back on this date. These are my timelines. Make sure that it's definitive. Make sure it's not flaky, because if you've got 10 people here in the UK ready to go that can start on July the 1st, and then there's somebody who's overseas that's saying, oh, well, I might come back for this, or I need to come back for that. The other people are going to be ahead of the queue, basically. And I'm sorry, that sounds a bit blunt, but I would put steps in process first and then start looking for a job, so to level up the playing field with everybody else. Yeah, Victoria, I think since putting something on a tablet is absolutely perfect, 100%, very much so. I'm just a little bit more old school with pens and paper. That works for me, but yeah, definitely on a tablet. Yeah, that's brilliant. So my understanding with photos were not a good idea on CVs. So will videos be welcome? Videos on CVs are different because it's giving an insight, and it's basically somebody explaining exactly what they're about. And as a picture there is very aesthetic, whereas a video is information based. And as I say, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that it was, even before this, but more so now, this is the one thing that people are going to start having to get their head around, that we need to be ahead of the curve, because the video introductions and the video interviews and everything else will be one of the biggest changes, and quickly over the next few months. So I've got no doubt in my mind that will happen. Good advice. I had a Skype interview whilst having a trader offer the job, so I would go for it. Brilliant. That's great news. Brilliant. Well done. There's so many messages coming through. I'm trying to. Okay, what's this one here? A job normally stays posted for 30 to 45 days. Do recruiters normally wait the entire period to start interviews, or start as they? Okay, that's a really good question. Right, so I'll give you a bit of an insight how it works from a recruitment agency perspective, because I promised that I would be as straight talking, as open as possible. If a job comes in, if this is if you see a job that is posted by a recruitment agency, you need to get in there as quick as you possibly can, because a recruitment consultant, as soon as a job comes in from their client, the recruitment consultant will be doing absolutely everything to fill that job as quickly as possible. If it takes that person 3 days, then that's what they're going to be shooting for. So the simple answer is yes, those jobs are posted for 30 to 45 days, but do get in there as quickly as you possibly can, because if a client goes to a recruitment agency, that job is a business critical job that the business has committed to X amount of salary plus an agency fee. So they're desperate to fill that job and they want it filled like ASAP.
They do.
There are some cases where firms will kind of wait and sit on it a little while, but 9 times out of 10, it's go time when that job goes live. So as soon as you see an advert, I would apply for it as quickly as you possibly can. And the websites, they have a kind of a lead time of how long these adverts last on there and what have you. And from a recruitment agency's perspective, it's good for the agency to have that job up and be visible so they can then start pipelining candidates for other particular jobs that then do come through. So that's a kind of little insight and what have you. Are we going to see an increase in recruitment for virtual PAs or firms? I think we will see. We will see if time's going to tell. Is something that I'm doing a lot of research on at this moment in time. Is what the kind of need for virtual PAs and remote PAs is. So that's something that we will definitely have more news on over in the next couple of weeks. I think logic tells me that there is going to be a slight increase, definitely. Whether the whole market moves to that way, I don't think will definitely happen, because I know a lot of people like to have the personal interaction as well. But I think there's definitely going to be a spike. Whether it goes off the scale, it's hard to tell at this moment in time. Okay, so if we're with recruitment agencies, how can we tailor a job when they're submitting us to numerous roles? Great one there, Lorna. I think a good recruitment consultant, okay, will you have control over which you should have control over where your CV goes to. It is not, and I repeat, not down to the recruitment consultant to send your CV anywhere without your permission or without running it by you, unless you've said to that recruitment consultant, hey, I'm totally cool with you sending my CV off to wherever you want me to. So that is where you could then tailor the videos to as much as possible. But again, if you're looking for, if you are, say, an HR, I don't know your background, Lorna, so if you're, just say, for example, you're an HR person and you are an HR assistant wanting to move into HR manager, you could say, well, this is my experience, this is what I want to do. If I'm a executive assistant in a professional service firm, I want to move into a similar organization, you can use that one to make it open it up that little bit more. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that helps. I think we're on top of the questions. Thanks for your advice. Which info can we get from the company website? There's a lot. I've never done it before. Know where to start. So when we think about getting information from different companies, I would look at the About Us page. Everybody will shout about the awards that they've won. Everybody will have a careers page on there. And if we're going into big organisations, we need to look at the department of somebody's got their microphone on. If that person, I think it's Selena, is it? Your mic, if that's possible. Sorry about that. So yeah, if we're going into a big organisation, look at the department where you would potentially be working in, essentially. So there we go. Hopefully hopefully that's lots of information for everyone to digest. As I say, I've been working on this kind of presentation for some time, and this is based around true facts. It's based around information that I've learned over 20 plus years. It's based around information that I've got from, that I've got directly from the hiring managers as well. So so look, hopefully you get something from this. If it helps one person, if it helps all of you, then amazing. We're just trying to kind of give people as much info as they possibly can so they can thrive in the current market. So fingers crossed you've enjoyed it. Thank you everyone who's logged in. Thanks so much. It's great to have you on board. And yeah, if anybody wants me for anything and they want me to just kind of chat and tell them how it is, I'm very happy to do that. It's no dramas whatsoever. So thanks for your time, everyone. Really, really appreciate you logging in and listening to what we have to say. Thanks, guys.